Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 26th, 2008 regular meeting of the City of Glendale Civil Service Commission. Could we have roll call, please, Ms. Torres?
Commissioner Devine?
Here.
Commissioner Coleman?
Here.
Commissioner Manukian?
Here.
Commissioner Carrion?
Here.
Chair Gantis?
Here. What is next?
Reading of the minutes.
I have read the minutes and have found no errors, Ms. Torres.
I move for approval.
And dispense with reading. Second.
Dispense with reading.
Second.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Carrion?
Yes.
Chair Gantis?
Yes. Did we lose some of the members? No, we didn't last time. What is next, please?
Oral communications.
This is.
Physically or mentally?
You want me to comment on that? Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. I have 4 cards, starting with Bruce Philpott.
Afternoon, Civil Service Commission members, city staff, and the public. My name is Bruce Philpott. I first want to congratulate this commission on its discussion of current hiring practices of the Glendale Fire Department. Everyone in the meeting 2 weeks ago, including the fire officials who were present, expressed extreme disappointment with the results so far. Your strategy of conducting an investigation with the proper due diligence may produce better outcomes than in the past. It is also our intent to engage the community so that there are many points of interest and pressures to put or to get the results that the City of Glendale deserves. Glendale is a very diverse community, and its government workforce should be representative of that diversity. Not that it is required by law, but that it makes good business sense and it is the right moral and ethical thing to do. After meeting with Chief Scoggins last week, it is clear that the only physical ability test given to recruit applicants, known as the BIDL, is exclusively geared toward people who have had prior access and training in handling specific fire-related equipment and tools. This in itself creates an unfair disadvantage for people who are not connected, who would like to seek a career in firefighting. By requiring applicants to manipulate specific equipment and tools related to the fire service, only those in the know will have that upper hand. Here's the list of strength tests required for each recruit applicant. This is a pass-fail test that takes approximately 9 minutes and 34 seconds. Applicants wear turnouts, tennis shoes, sweatpants with self-contained breathing apparatus. Number 1, evolution. Dry hose drag 150 feet with a 1 3/4 hand line. Number 2, a charged hose drag 100 feet around a barrel and either through or around a tunnel. Number 3, extend and bring down a 24-foot extension ladder. 4, stimulate crawling through an attic with a flashlight. 5, using a plastic replica of a chainsaw, walk up a roof pitch and back down. 6, strike an object 30 times with a sledgehammer above the shoulders, simulating an axe movement. 7, drag a 120-pound dummy across cones or round cones. 8, pull a 24-foot aluminum extension ladder off a roof, put it on shoulders, and walk around 3 cones and put the ladder back. 9, pick up a hose pack weighing 40 pounds and walk up 5 flights of stairs and back to a second floor. 10, do a search of a perimeter. 11, carry 2 dummy air tanks with straps weighing about 15 pounds apiece up to a 3rd floor and pull approximately 100 feet of hose. End of test, 9 minutes and 34 seconds. You're supposed to do it within those functions. Strength tests should be designed to test for general body strength and stamina. Otherwise, the outcome is biased toward those who have a special relationship with firefighters. I want to call to your attention a Glendale article in the Glendale News Press dated September 24th, 2004. You might find this reflective and interesting for those of you who were serving at the time on the Civil Service Commission. It says Glendale Fire has plans to diversify. department to fast-track locals from cadet program, organize meetings for the community. I'm just going to paraphrase a couple paragraphs. Glendale City Hall. After city officials pressured the fire department to better reflect the city's ethnic makeup, Glendale Fire Chief Chris Gray unveiled plans this week to diversify his staff. Gray and other department personnel briefed the city's Civil Service Commission on Wednesday about the department's recent community outreach efforts. Those include giving fire cadets an edge over other recruits when competing to join the force and holding meetings to inform locals about the force, what they have to do to join. Quoted, "It is better to bring someone into the fire service from the cadet program because they have already done ride-alongs and have worked alongside firefighters," Chief Gray added. At the time, Battalion Chief Harold Scoggins, who heads recruiting and hiring, also announced the next public information night, a community outreach meeting at 6:30 p.m. at such and such a location at Fire Station 21, date and time. Commissioners who recently slammed the Glendale fire officials for lagging behind Glendale police and other city departments in diversity praised Gray during the meeting for steering his staff in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Welling.
Good evening, gentlemen. Carol Welling. I just want to give an update here on the firefighters. I'm particularly interested in having more women firefighters, as you all know. We did meet with Chief Scoggins, and out of that outcome, I've been now in touch with, her name is Elizabeth Ward, out of Mount Sac. Her and I will be meeting. She's been tied up, but I did speak to her today. Basically, I'm going to support what Mr. Philpott had to say. What comes out of the meeting with Scoggins is the fact that there needs to be a general physical test at the beginning, not the firemen at the end. It's like the military. When you go in the military, they want to make sure that you've got eyesight. You got to get two legs, 2 arms, and a few other things, and not flat feet. But they train you. That's why you're there after 6 to 8. Basic training is for you to come out at the end result as a Army recruit, and as should the fire department. Now, one of the things that was mentioned when I was here last is one of the reasons why that women were not attracted to Glendale Fire Department is the fact that women seek fire departments where there's more opportunity. Well, let me just focus on the opportunity here in Glendale. Mr. Scoggins, I asked him, when did you hire on? He hired on the same year as the one-woman firefighter. Mr. Scoggins has been progressing up the line, and it's now taken, I call her Joanne, the one-woman firefighter, has taken her 19 years to get to the station and position that Mr. Scoggins got to in 9. So I don't think that women are going to be attracted to the Glendale Fire Department for their promotional abilities. Also, there was a gentleman here who was with the fire department, Mr. Stravos. And I wanted to draw to your attention that Mr. Stravos, fire captain, I believe he is out of, I think, 26. And evidently, he had authorization to leave with the truck, him and all the staff from Fire Station 26, which is up North Brand, to come down here and speak. And I find this very disconcerting because the fire department is always talking about their response time when they were not even in their own area. This is the area here is Fire Department 21. So I think this, some of it's been corrected, but one of the persons that was here at the last meeting was talking to me, who is stationed out of 21, how he jogs past my house. I live up on East Mountain, up by Nibley Park, and he's stationed down here, and he's jogging up there. Where is the response time there? Where is the concern about response time at these particular locations? And also, I asked Matt, I said, I'd like to know the promotions that Mr. Strovas has had. I understand Greek, Stavros. And you did not get back to me, but I think that his promotion up the ladder of success at the Glendale Fire Department will also beat Joanne's, who is lagging behind by about 10 years. Also, I'd like to say that
Is that Joanne Davis? Is that who you're referring to?
Call her Joanne.
Okay.
Our one and only. Also, I'd like to propose that there needs to be some oversight here of the Glendale Fire Department. Bruce has just read you something. Oh, yes, we're going to do it. We're working on it. We're going to do it. And all the PR goes on forever. The PR has been going on for 20 years. I'm telling you, I'll get PR probably until the day I die, and it'll be going on for the next 50 years. So there needs to be some objectivity, some oversight as to what's really going on here. We need diversity in the fire department. We need females in the fire department. That is one gravy train. You look at those hours, Mr. Mr. Stavros works 2 days a week. What a deal. I think some women would like to do that. And also, I'd like to remind you that there were statistics in the paper where approximately 85 to 87% of the responses by the fire department are medical issues. They have nothing to do with the hose. All right. So anyway, I will come back when I get to get some more statistics from Ms. Ward as to why there's such a failure rate with the Glendale Fire Department in getting women applicants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Welling.
Make a comment.
No. We have to get moving. We'll comment when we get the report. Commissioner Abkarian.
All right, just a quick note. I unfortunately didn't stay until the end of that meeting, and I did watch the meeting on camera. And first of all, the ward investigation keeps coming up, and I read it in one other location. I don't know if any investigation is ever going to be done with this. We will have constructive suggestions, but we're not going to substitute some civilian responses with the professional firefighter who know what they're doing. That also includes what's best for the fire department and for the people, citizens of the city of Glendale. We're not going to substitute a test that is not going to be effective, and it's going to be something that the fire department is not going to be needing. So I just wanted to make that comment. Just because there's been investigation has this connotation that somebody did something wrong and somebody needs to come in and investigate it. And I think my approach, at least, has always been that we will, and I have been a very big advocate of diversification, trust me, and I see the fire department going in the right direction. Do they need more work? Yes, but have they done what they're supposed to do in the past at least 4 years? There's no question about it. So I don't like the word investigation being used as something that we actually had said that we're going to do it against the police department or anything else. We will make constructive recommendations and hope that that would be sufficient.
If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Doyle and Mr. Braden, we're getting a report. We've asked for a report on facts on the cities that we canvass for salaries. We're asking for a report on what they do with respect to women and how they've handled that. If I'm not mistaken, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Our next speaker is Joanne Davis.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm Joanne Davis, Master of Public Administration, Glendale Fire Captain, and formerly a Director of the Glendale Firefighters Association. I've been with the department for over 18 years, and I worked with 2 agencies prior to that for a total of 21 years in the fire service. I came in this evening off-duty of my own accord to ensure that you receive an accurate picture of my organization insofar as it relates to women in the fire service. I'll tell you that the problem with being the only female in the department, other than not being able to field a women's soccer team, is that it's far too easy to be singled out. No one needs to know anything about me or have even met me or know my name to say that she did something or said something, and it immediately narrows it down to me. So it was at your meeting of February 27th and again tonight. My name or some pronoun that necessarily refers to me got bandied about quite a bit, so I'm here to set the record straight. At that meeting, a member of the public came before you who is in no position and thus clearly unqualified to form such a judgment and told you that there is a hostility problem regarding women in my fire department. Frankly, I fear the only reason you pay any credence to the accusation is because you were led to believe that statement somehow came from me. And I'm here to tell you unequivocally that nothing could be further from the truth. As the only female in the department, I am the authority on the subject. And I'm telling you, there is no hostility towards women, and in my tenure here, there never has been. I've had what I consider to be a very successful career here in the fire department. I spent 9 years as a firefighter, 9.5 as an engineer, and I've just recently promoted to captain. And I went at that pace because I wanted to. Both the rank and file and fire management have been nothing but helpful and supportive in all that time. And I guarantee that management and HR have done everything humanly possible within the constraints of Prop 209 and our staffing to try to get more women and minorities into the department. They've been very responsive to my concerns over the years and very receptive to all the suggestions that I've made, and we continue to work together to change the situation. No one wants to see women gain entry into this job more than I do. However, I do not believe this should happen at the expense of the civil service system. You gentlemen are the guardians of our merit system. Our city has tasked you with, and I quote for the public, ensuring continuation of Glendale's reputation as a city whose employees attain and keep their positions on the basis of ability, training, and experience rather than political patronage. Now, some of the public have attempted to utilize this forum to further their political agenda. Those activities rightfully belong in the City Council. This panel is here to protect the fairness and sanctity of our hiring process from any political connivance. That anyone would come here and attempt to usurp that trust from you, as a student of government, I am frankly offended for you. You're the guardians of the process. And I submit that it's largely because we have rigorously enforced that process that I can state without reservation that a hostile environment does not exist, because there can be no perception that anyone undeserving has been handed a job. There can be no doubt that our numbers of women and some minorities are low, but there are specific reasons for that. And I assure you there's no conspiracy, no subversion, and certainly no hostility, as has been so blithely alleged. We have what is arguably and in many ways quantifiably the finest fire department in the country, and we want only to maintain that standard. If you look at this from my perspective as the only woman, this isn't a new issue. That this is somehow all of a sudden turned into a crisis is, from where I sit, somewhat laughable, because this has been my reality for 18.5 years. So I urge you not to react to this as a crisis. Those kinds of knee-jerk reactions usually lead to poor policy decisions. The system is working properly. When we do get more women, they will be both worthy and capable, and it will happen eventually. Now, I think it would be instructive for me to relate my experience through the hiring process,
Keep going.
because it's pretty typical of most candidates. I'd be happy to provide you with all the details, but the important point is that I personally spent over 2 years getting hired in the fire service, and I didn't pass the first physical agility test that I took. Now, as Captain Stavros mentioned when he was here on the 27th, that was back in the day when all of the tests were different. So you never knew what you were going to find when you got there. And so it did take some experience to build up. I consider myself very lucky that I ended up here in Glendale, because I tested for many, many fire departments all over Southern California. Very few people take just one test and get in. The competition is too stiff and the process too difficult. It does happen, but it's very rare. Most candidates test with multiple departments before finally being hired. Now, I'm very happy to sit down with any of you and answer any questions you may have. I'm very easy to find. Call the fire department, tell them you want to talk to the woman. Somebody will track me down. But I'm here tonight, so if you have any questions for me, gentlemen, please.
Yes, Commissioner Devine. First of all, before that, I think we're very fortunate to have you. and your words were well spoken. I just wanted to tell you that, very well spoken.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Devine.
Mr. Chair?
Oh.
Yeah, before we get into questions and answers and whatever, just remember this is oral communications.
communication.
Nothing was agendized. Commission has the right to make brief responses to any comments that are made, but we're not here to discuss matters.
Yes. Okay, we're allowed to question the speaker, and so we're just doing a question. Is that correct, Commissioner Devine?
Well, thanks to Mr. Braden, I no longer have a question. I'm going to ask it, and if it needs to be agendized, then
Okay.
I'll move for that. But during your very excellent talk, I really appreciate your coming in and talking to us like this. You mentioned that there were some specific reasons for the lack of women and minorities in the fire department, but you didn't really allude to any of those. Can you just, off the top of your head, give us a couple that, generic things that we
Yes,
could look
sir.
at?
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt you. That is getting into stuff that we need to agendize. We're going to have this report, and Captain Davis, it's Captain, correct?
Yes, sir.
We can ask her, if you wouldn't mind, when we do, can we give her ample notice and to be sure that she's here, and then that'll be part of what we ask. We were afforded a copy of the LA Weekly article from the Glendale that was done by Christine, I forget what her last name was. I've read that article, and that's going to be a subject also, and I want to make sure that, we've also I've actually been in contact with an LA Fire Department captain, female, that I work out with, and we're going to chat, and then we also have, we're going to get some people here. We're going to get to the bottom of this, but this is not the time, unfortunately, to do that. So if we could hold that, if you could hold that question, we will do that. Commissioner?
All right. One other thing,
Yes.
you mentioned the article in the LA Weekly, which I thought was enlightening, and I'm wondering if we could ask you to get a copy of that. I think it was provided to us by the fire department, and perhaps answer some questions on that when we do have our meeting.
Have you read that article?
Absolutely.
Brian?
I have not read the article. I understand it's about the the female tutorial program that they ran for some time.
Well, it
It's
goes much
If that's a
deeper.
Much
program,
deeper
I
than
was in
that.
that program.
Yeah.
So
You were in
I
the
may
program?
also be able to answer
Yeah.
some questions
But it-
for you.
Okay, I think we're getting beyond that. Commissioner Coleman?
Captain, I just simply wanted to thank you for being here. And it was duly noted that it was on your own time and your own dime. And what you had to say was more than just a little enlightening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank
Hopefully, when you come next time, it will be on your own time, hopefully.
Thank you so much.
John.
And I promise you, when you do come back and we agendize this, I'm pretty sure you might have to have a chair to sit with. So, thank you. No, of course, no, you passed the test, so you can
you.
stand all the time.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carlos Guerrero.
Good evening, Chair Gantis, members of the Commission, city staff. My name is Carlos Guerrero. I'm a Glendale Fire Captain. I've been a member of the Glendale Fire Department for the last 22 years. I can tell you that as a minority, I would be insulted if you hired me because of the color of my skin or where my parents came from. I feel that I'm here based on my merit, my ability, and my skills. Not only that, my passion for helping human beings. I want to thank Mr. Doyle, HR, and all the Glendale Fire Department employees who have worked tirelessly to try and promote within our own community of Glendale people to become firefighters. I've been a part of that process for many years. I can assure you, people that become firefighters that I've spoken to did it on their own merit, not because of what I told them, because of what they were willing to do. The numbers, the facts, and figures that the chief will show you, or you have seen in the past, reflect numbers. Unfortunately, what we can't grasp on data is passion, desire, commitment. We can't check that on a box. The reality is we are in a dangerous profession. As firefighters, you want people who are competent, able to do the job physically, mentally, and have compassion. Because if you want to walk into a burning building and you don't have compassion for your fellow man, you'll find a way to stay outside. The reality is this. We are a great organization. I'm proud to be here. And all of my career, I've helped and talked to kids from 5 years old to 25 that want to be firefighters. The ones that become it, like I said before, it's because of their passion and desire. Joanne took multiple tests. The majority of firefighters try for several years to become firefighters. It is not an easy task. Physically, it is not. I just talked to a 23-year-old manager of In-N-Out Burger yesterday. He makes over $100,000 a year for making sure burgers get flipped right. So for a person to have to go through physical agility and the arduous work to become a firefighter, compared to becoming an In-N-Out Burger manager, nothing wrong with that. I appreciate what they do. But why would they want to take our position? The people that do this don't do it for the money. Believe me, I heard that possibly today 2 firefighters from LA City lost their life.
Oh, my.
I haven't gotten approval, fact on that yet, but that's a possibility. The reason I drug my wife, my niece and nephew here today, is I owe it to them. I owe it to them to make sure that we have the best people working alongside me so that I come home to them. That's what it's all about. The erroneous statements made by some of the members of the public that can't even get the names of the fire department employees correctly, like Mr. Union President Stavros. Those individuals owe us a huge apology because the erroneous lies that they're telling you, I'll just make a quick example. Mr. Philpott said that only the people on the inside know what the test is all about. I can go somewhere in Southern California every single weekend and take a physical agility test as long as I'm breathing and have $1 or $2 in my pocket. That's all it takes. When I got hired, there was one test the week before, and that was it. I laid on the street of Glendale Civic Auditorium for 4 days just to receive an application. An application that now you can download off the internet, you can turn it in on multiple dates, and it's open to everybody and anybody that's breathing. 4 days I waited for the opportunity to take the test. People take our applications nowadays and never even turn them in. They have to Google where the city of Glendale is. I drove here. I love this town. As a firefighter, I lay my life down for the people here. And to hear, most of the citizens love us, and I appreciate their support. But to hear the few people that come up here week in and week out, not only to the commission, but to the city council meeting, and spew their lies and accusations on us, I'm disgusted. I'm about ready to tell Chief Cousins, I resign. I resign from being an advocate at the fire department and try to lure anybody towards our department. Because I will not do it under the guise of trying to hire somebody based on the color of their skin, or their gender, or their race. It doesn't matter. And like Joanne Davis, she was my rookie. They never told me, make sure that she gets past your probationary process. She's a female. No, they said, treat her like you would treat anybody else. Train her. I did. And I'm proud to say she made it just like the rest of the rookies I've trained. I'm proud of her achievements. She chose her path of career. She's carried a heavy torch. And I'm proud of her. And I made sure when she made through, I didn't pull any punches. I didn't give her any favors. Her and I fought together on College Hills Fire, side by side, for hours, defending this community. She proved it with me. Not because she was a female, because she had what it takes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. Harold Scoggins.
Good evening, Commissioner Gantis and members of the Commission. Just want to correct a couple things. I did meet with a couple members of the community over the last couple weeks, and we kind of recapped some of the things that we talked about at the last meeting here. And I just want to get some things straight, because it's very important to me that things are straight and laid out correctly. At that meeting, I was proud of some of our accomplishments, but I did say we had work to do that day. But I'm proud of the accomplishments that we have had between 03 and 07, because 49% of the employees that we have hired on the sworn side in fire have been minorities. Now, I acknowledge that we have work to do, and we are still working hard there. So I did not express extreme disappointment. But I do know that we have work to do, and we're going to continue to work hard as we do. Another point, the physical abilities test is geared exclusively toward people with training. That's not correct. That's not what our conversation was about when we met. We had a disagreement there. I would have been in agreement with the members of the community if the test graded technique. The test does not grade technique. It just grades the ability to get through each evolution. And we had a disagreement there. But the test is a very general test. And just like Captain Guerrero said, it can be taken pretty much every weekend if you have $2 in your pocket. Another point about our cadet program, giving an edge to our cadets. That's not correct. I don't believe that at all. Our cadets have been and will be scrutinized more than a firefighter who comes in off of the open list. And I will tell you why. We have a cadet test next week. The cadets have to take that test next week and come in at an hourly position where they're doing ride-alongs and they're paid a small fee. But they're scrutinized through evaluations and through a task books, and they're trained, which means that they're scrutinized as a cadet, as an hourly employee. And we get to see them and we get to know them, and we kind of get to test the goods before they move on to the next part of the process. But when the next firefighter process starts, it all starts over again. So they go through the process twice. So they are really scrutinized twice. It's a very detailed program, and our cadets work hard. Some of them are successful, and some of them are our firefighters today. Some of them have gone to other firefighters, other fire departments, such as Los Angeles City Fire Department, Riverside Fire Department, Downey Fire Department, because we weren't hiring at the time. But some of them have been released from the organization because they did not meet the standards. So they did not even make it as a rookie firefighter. And another point one of the speakers made regarding the fire department is like the military and the testing is the same. I disagreed with that point the day we met, and I disagree with that point today. And I do feel I'm educated to speak to that because I was in the military. I served in the military. I know what basic training is like, and I know what it's like when you get out of basic training. Unless you're exclusively security police, which is a police officer, or a firefighter in the military, after basic training, you pretty much go into everyday life unless you're a soldier that's in the infantry or recon or one of those special details where your physical abilities are really being tested on a daily basis. But a good part of the military, that's not what you do every day. And I can speak to that because I was there. So it's not so simple to make that statement that gets someone out of the military, even though we have attended the military recruitment fairs for the veterans who have been recently released. Just a couple of points, and one other point that was given on the data regarding women in the fire service, and one piece that was given regarding San Diego Fire Department, for example, that they were a third women or 30%, that once again was incorrect data. We've been working hard. We've been in contact with these other organizations around us, and you'll get that in your report. But I do think it's important for us to address these issues when they're said, and that's why I'm here tonight. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief Scoggins.
And also like to correct one thing. I did get an update. It was one LA City firefighter so far, Mayor Villaraigosa announced that has passed away, and they're looking for another. There was an explosion at a fire earlier this afternoon in LA.
Where was it?
I'm not sure. I'll look at the details later, but it just speaks to the point. It's a lot medical calls, but when the fire event happens, you just don't know what can happen, and that just speaks to the point. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're sorry about the firefighter that lost his life.
Her. Or her.
Yes, Mr. Braden.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to remind everyone that the jurisdiction of this commission is over recruitment, outreach, testing, and selection, not over monitoring the response times of the fire department or other performance issues of the fire department. So under the Brown Act, if speakers could address themselves to matters that are within the jurisdiction of this commission, that would be appropriate.
Ziggy, and it's either W-I-L-K Wilk or W-I-C-K Wick. I can't read if it's an L or a C. Okay, young man, come forward. Is it Wilk or Wick?
Wilk.
Okay. State your name.
My name's Ziggy Wilk, and all I want to say is that my uncle, Carlos Guerrero over here, he's a fire captain with Glendale Fire Department, and I've been there before and I've seen their department, and I know they're very, very nice people there. They're very nice to me and my little sister and everybody, and I know they would never do this stuff because they would never hire somebody because of their gender or anything like that. They'd hire them because of how much they qualify, how good they are, how everything, just how much they qualified to become a firefighter. And there's nothing wrong with girl firefighters. And I know girls are just as good as men. They can do just as much. And my uncle thinks the same thing, that girls are just as good. And this Glendale Fire Department is a good fire department, and I don't want their name to just be made fun of or say they only care about men being on their department and everything. I know they work hard every single day to save lives, and some lose their lives in the process. That's all I want to say, just that they're an awesome department.
Thank you, young man. I have no further cards.
It was very nice. It was very nice of you to come up here and talk.
Thank you,
very
yes.
much. That takes a lot of guts, and it's very nice of you. Remember, tomorrow your girl classmates, are going to see this on TV, so be ready.
Yes.
I just wonder if we get an update from Mr. Doyle on the status of the report and how
Well,
far
we can
out-
do that at the agenda forecast. We'll ask at that time.
Well, perhaps the people in the audience would be interested and may not want to wait till the agenda forecast, so
Mr. Doyle.
for everybody's information, or sort of a time frame ballpark.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, Commissioner Devine, we haven't made much progress on that as of yet. My staff is engaged in other activities at the moment relative to our budget this year, as far as the budget requests that have been made by the various departments, and that will keep us busy through probably the first week of April. However, following that, we will begin the process of gathering the information. I wish I did have the luxury of having staff simply drop everything they're working on to work on something like this, but a report of this magnitude is going to take a little bit of time, and I do appreciate, the Commission. You folks have always been very reasonable in giving us appropriate time to get back to you with these types of reports, and I hope you do understand the workload issue that we face. What I would anticipate is probably one of our meetings in June, being back with you with this information, if that's acceptable to the Commission.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the Civil Service Commission? None appearing, I declare oral communications closed. What is next?
Eligible list established.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, since our last meeting, we have 3 eligible lists that have been established, 2 open, 1 promotional. As your report indicates, the report has the total number of applications received for those positions and the total number who have made it through to the eligibility list. On this report, you see open recruitment for wastewater maintenance trainee, then see fire chief, and then a promotional examination for the senior safety services specialist. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? No action necessary. What is next?
Class specification for approval, engineering technician series.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is a revision of an existing class specification series for engineering technician, and I'd like to bring your attention to a handout that was given to you just prior to the meeting, and there are some in the back. This is no different than what you have. However, the version of, or some of the versions of the specification that have been handed out did not contain the underlined portions. So I do apologize for that. But the one that's been handed out does have the underlined portions, which, of course, indicate the changes. Again, this is a revision of an existing series, engineering technician. This is a series where we have employees employed in several city departments, primarily water and power, public works, but also other areas as well. And this was last looked at back in 1991, so it's series has a few minor modifications. There's some language added relative to something called CAD. That's computer-aided design, which is certainly what's become the standard in the engineering world these days. And really one of the bigger changes to this specification would be the inclusion of language relative to the Underground Service Alert, or otherwise known as USA function, which is handled through Glendale Water and Power. Again, this GWP has utilized this classification to staff that particular function, but it's none of those duties are reflected in the existing class specification. And so we wanted to delineate those duties and make them part of this specification. This Chair Gantis is actually an effort to reduce the bureaucracy. We could have come before you with a brand-new series.
I was waiting for the senior principal engineering technician.
Rather than create a whole new series of titles relating specifically to Underground Service Alert, we made the decision to incorporate that into this existing series. That portion of it affects the engineering tech and senior engineering tech classifications within this series. And all the different job duties associated with that function, many of which are more of a physical abilities relation, being out in the field and standing and squatting and kneeling down and stuff like that. My staff is here to address this. We have Ms. Klein, who's our HR analyst for Water and Power, as is Richard Germond, who's principal engineer for the electrical section of Water and Power. Do you have any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
And, Mr. Chair, before you do that, we'll make this a part of the record that was this handout, the engineering tech
the markup
series.
of the tech.
Move to approve with the documentation handed to us.
Approve of that, Mr. Seconder?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Karian?
Yes.
Chair Gantis?
Yes. What is next?
Class specification for approval, Fire Protection Engineer Series.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this again is a revision of an existing class specification. This is the Fire Protection Engineer Series. This contains two classifications, Fire Protection Engineer 1 and 2. And again, this is a minor revision to the series. Some of the updated language is there, and it's underlined for your information. Probably the most significant change to this series has to do with the type of engineering degree that is required. We've simply broadened that, along with the type of engineering license that's required. Both of these classifications are required to be professional engineers registered with the state of California. The current specification indicates that the schooling must be in fire protection engineering. Problem with that is that, to my understanding, there are very few schools in the country that have a curriculum in fire protection engineering, and very hard to find people in this field. So what we're seeking to do is broaden that a little bit and now accept a college degree in structural engineering, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, even chemical engineering as a qualifier for this particular position. So that's basically the changes we're looking at. Ms. Hunanian from my staff worked on this specification. We also have Dave Woods, who's the fire marshal here, in case you have any questions.
Any questions? What is your pleasure? Oh, Commissioner Devine, excuse me.
Now, I do have several questions. I don't know whether your staff person can answer it or Mr. Woods, but first of all, in the write-up, you said this in combination with a competition with consulting engineering service sector. What competition are we talking about?
Where are you looking?
I'm looking at the cover page for this class. Second paragraph, third line down, under background.
Chair Gantis and Commissioners, if I could.
Yes.
Woods, Fire Marshal. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
It's the other mic.
Oh, is it? Well, that's probably why it wasn't working then. Our other competition to hire fire protection engineers is actually in the private industry. The private industry has been able to hire fire protection engineers, engineering associates or engineers in training directly out of school. And actually they were hiring them, and they're going into the schools through the University of Maryland, for example, and they're getting students to work as interns, and they're hiring them in the fire protection engineering firms like Shermer Engineering and so forth, before we ever have an opportunity to even hire them. As you know, Commissioner Devine, back some time ago, 30 years ago, there was actually no registration as a fire protection engineer, and people that did that type of work actually were electrical and mechanical engineers for the most part. So we're trying to open it up, broaden it a little bit. 8 years ago when we did this, some testing in this, we had really a tremendous amount of difficulty getting anybody to apply for the job that was a registered engineer, because frankly we can't compete with the outside market. But we have had actually some luck with mechanical engineers that have showed some interest in electrical engineers.
Okay. I certainly understand and respect what you're trying to do, and I have no problem with the concept of wanting to broaden it so you get more candidates. Being a licensed fire protection engineer, a licensed structural engineer, and a licensed civil engineer, I can speak with some authority to say that the training and background as a fire protection engineer is really different than that for a structural or civil. And the testing process is different, and the skills and knowledge required as a fire protection engineer are different. It's my belief that if you want to broaden your ability to get personnel to work in that discipline and use, structural engineers or civil or mechanical, that I think since the state of California has seen fit to classify fire protection engineers as separate discipline, that we need to look at changing the name and the classification for that whole series. Because in reality, if you're going to accept a civil or structural or mechanical, to me it's misleading to now call them fire protection engineers, because they are not, according to the state of California. So I wrestled with this a little bit, and I think it would be fine to broaden it so they could have any of those disciplines, but I think in doing that we need to change the name of the class and to reflect what it really is. For example, and I threw this off the top of my head, first of all, you have on your org chart here, you have fire engineering, environmental code enforcement, and fire investigation. Looking at that just as it's set, I see conflicts between some of the nomenclature there, which I don't know how you resolve, but it didn't make sense to me in a couple of areas. But dealing with this issue where you show fire engineering, you might want to call that fire prevention or fire safety or something that will take it out of the engineering class. Then under where you have fire protection engineer 2 and fire protection engineer 1, what I would suggest is call it a fire prevention specialist or a fire safety analyst or something like that, that would, again, broaden the field, allow anybody to apply for it, but would not mislead people into thinking they were licensed fire protection engineers by the state of California. So that's a long way of saying I agree with the concept, but we need to change the names and the classifications to fit the new qualification, what you're accepting for candidates.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Doyle?
If I could ask Commissioner Devine, is there any legal issue with calling someone a fire protection engineer who may have their degree in structural or their license in structural? Because I know the State Board of Registration for Professional Engineers is somewhat leery of who gets to call themselves an engineer and who doesn't.
A good question. I looked that up, and as far as the state of California is concerned, you cannot call yourself as a consulting or professional fire protection engineer and run a business, but that's the only caveat they put on there. I guess anybody could say they're a fire protection engineer, but they cannot advertise it as a consulting or a professional or something like that. But again, as far as this series is concerned, I think changing the name to better reflect what they're really doing, I'd be more comfortable with that. And again, I have 4 other commissioners that have to weigh in on this, but that would be my professional advice to do this.
So you're proposing essentially leave the job description as it's proposed here, except consider a different title.
Just a different title. Also, in reading through the functions and whatnot, where you intersperse the wording fire protection engineer and whatnot, I think the whole description needs to be redone to coincide with whatever you choose to be the new name, if that's the way the commission goes, the new name of that series. The other thing I was a little bit concerned about, and it's just a minor thing, but one of the things you deleted in the class specs was the word accredited when you were talking about college or school work. And I'm wondering why you deleted accredited from that requirement. Does that mean you don't need to go to an accredited school now to qualify?
No, I'm sorry. Can you show me?
Under education and training, it used to require a bachelor's degree in fire protection engineering from an accredited university. It's been changed to expand the bachelor's degree in many engineering disciplines, but it's cut out the word from an accredited university, so arguably could be from an unaccredited university.
I think that was just cleaning up the language, and there was an assumption on our part that it would be an accredited college or university.
Well, I'm not sure what an accredited university would be.
I'm not either, but I mean, I think we were just cleaning up some of the language. There was no other intent there.
Okay, well, if that was the case, I would say that we need to put accredited back in to go along with it. Also, I did some...
That might be I mean, what accredited is probably was the question, so...
I suspect that
I think we addressed this.
Most of our specifications don't specifically say from an accredited university, and I think that was just a matter of probably keeping it consistent and not a deliberate act to say that we will accept someone from an unaccredited college, if that, is that...
I think another issue is when you say university, the university is a word of art. For instance, Boston College, which is a major college, is called Boston College for a purpose. It is not a university because it doesn't have what universities require. And that includes CSUN, because they don't, while they're called universities, they're not necessarily universities. So I think the word is misleading. But I think...
And Cal said Northridge is a university.
not in the North.
With you.
Be that as it may, I would suggest, members of the commission, one of the questions I think that Mr. Devine brought up was, it appears to me from this that there is a registration or a category of engineering that registers as a fire protection engineer. And if that's the case, Mr. Braden, it would appear to me that we are advertising this position as a fire protection engineer. And that might then, if this person isn't a fire protection, I understand your concern, isn't a fire protection engineer, are we violating some rule of the California State Board of Registration by categorizing it as such?
I wouldn't. I would say we are not, because this is just our nomenclature. And as Commissioner Devine pointed out, the only restriction is you can't operate a business with that title.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Devine. There are many mechanical and electrical engineers out there that do fire protection engineering work. I think maybe what caught your attention the most was the structural and civil engineering that's included in this series. And also this lends you to believe that it's actually a registered fire protection engineer. I mean, right there?
Actually not, because, you include a chemical engineer and other type fields where they may not have the same background that, I would say that perhaps a civil engineer who was in, building trades would be more qualified than a chemical engineer.
Commissioner Epke.
Based on all the questions that Commissioner Devine has just brought up and some legal issues that might be of a concern, I wouldn't feel comfortable really voting for this particular item unless we have some of those legal issues actually addressed. And if we can maybe come up with a different name as suggested and then redo this. So my recommendation would be, instead of, I'm not very convinced that we can do anything about this tonight, revise it to a point where it's actually going to be votable, if there is such a word. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think we're on the same page. I was going to suggest at the end that we were going to send it back or not vote on it and have them look at these issues and come back with a revised...
Mr. Chair, could I make a suggestion? But first, can I ask Dave Woods a question? Is there a recruitment pending? Are we waiting to open this, like right now?
Yes, we have 2 positions available.
Could I recommend that this be approved as is, but that with an assurance from me that we will look at an alternate title for this and change the nomenclature throughout the specification away from fire protection? There's a little bit of work involved in changing a job title because it has to go and be approved as a salary ordinance with the City Council, which is something I typically do a couple times a year.
I wouldn't want to change it, my personal opinion, I wouldn't want to change the fire engineer, with all due respect to Mr. Devine, if there are no legal concerns and issues surrounding calling someone Fire Protection Engineer 1. If there are legal concerns and issues where we are going to actually have that name put in, because if you're practicing, it doesn't matter if you're practicing in a business or in the city, you're still practicing Fire Protection Engineer. So if there are no legal consequences in reference to calling someone legal engineer or Fire Protection Engineer 1 or 2, then I wouldn't be in favor of changing much in this series. However, if there are legal consequences, then I want to make sure that we contact the whoever the state agencies are and get some assurances from them by our attorney here. So I wouldn't be comfortable giving an okay to have you do something that we are not really sure about, because there might be legal consequences that if there are no legal consequences, I would approve this, but I don't know.
We can...
I feel the same way, may I add?
We could try to come back by next meeting with the answer to that question. I think Mr. Devine is probably about as expert as anyone in this room on this subject, but we will contact the State Board of Registration for Professional Engineers and just confirm, I think, validate what he said about whether or not it's legal and appropriate for a municipality to use this title when the requirement isn't necessarily.
What is your recommendation again, Mr. Doe? What is your recommendation again?
Well, my recommendation would be to allow this to pass tonight with this title in place, but then have us come back and recommend a different job title, something like perhaps a fire prevention engineer, which might, or
I don't want to change the
acceptable.
title if it doesn't. I don't want to do that, because if it's moving a grain of sand, if we don't have to legally.
I think the legal question can be answered relatively easily, I think, just by checking with the State Board.
Could we get something in writing from the State Board one way or the other?
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly can try.
Well, that really is a question, though, honestly, that if we've directed it to our attorney, if there's a legal impediment, he has the authority as the attorney to say, hey, you can't go forward, this is illegal. So that would put a stop to it right there, because if it's illegal, they can't go forward with this. So it's really out of our hands. If it's something that is illegal, Ron's going to tell them not to do it. Am I correct, Ron? Wouldn't you tell them that?
You are correct.
So, and they would. Am I correct, Mr. Doyle? Yes, so therefore, I don't know that it needs, we can get a report back on it as to what it was, but I don't know that we need to get something in writing. I think bottom line, if it's...
I'm talking about one-page document saying that there's no legal ramifications of using this particular title, in this series. That's all.
Do we want to add, the other point Mr. Devine brought up was the idea of the accredited university. Do we know what that is? I mean, I guess you got to be somewhat accredited to give a BA, don't you?
I thought I knew what it was, but
You can go online and get a...
Well, we know UCLA is not an accredited university, so...
no, but they are in the Sweet 16,
That's
so
it.
that's...
Can I tell you, but for Kevin Love. Do we want to add that back in there, or is that...
I would suggest that we do.
Do we want to maybe say an accredited educational institution so that we're not bound by the word university?
You know, you want it to be consistent with everything. I don't mind using the accredited, but let's not change all the other language in there, because...
But he says
say
we don't have...
accredited.
Yeah.
Accredited what?
Just say accredited, and we'll let the chips fall with it. Maybe human resources will deal with it.
Accredited what, though? Accredited is an adjective. It needs to modify a noun, Mr. Abkarian.
Anybody have a gun?
I talked to Ms. Baszler, my high school teacher, and
If I may
in
ask
high
a question, Commissioner, does the fact that a chemical engineer in here, does that cause a problem with you? I mean, are there any engineering in here that you would like to see taken out of this?
It really not. The thought of taking away the requirement to be a registered fire protection engineer and allowing them to use a title in the city,
Right.
a fire protection engineer, that bothers me, regardless of what other jurisdiction.
and I
comes in
totally
there.
agree. I 100% agree. It's just like calling yourself attorney when you're not.
Right.
I mean, just you have
You didn't want to change it.
No. I said if there are no legal consequences in using it, I don't have any issue. So if you want me to put a motion forward to actually have it approved the way it is, with understanding that the legal will look at the legalities of that particular issue within the next 7 days or something, then I'm comfortable with that. But and if that will speed up the process, but I definitely want some clarification from the state, so we're not using an licensed engineer's name on somebody who is not actually licensed to do what they're supposed to do. Right, Mr. Devine?
I agree with that, but I also wanted to see what Mr. Devine, what would you recommend?
Well, I understand the problem that they're faced with a time crunch. I don't feel that I could support that, even if they find it's legal. I still have a problem with the terminology. I think the way the thing is written does not fit the situation anymore. Obviously, I don't have my colleagues agreeing with that, so I would vote no on the motion, regardless of whether or not it's legal or not. To me, I think they have to find out if it's legal, and number two, that they need to change the description of the class to match the requirements that they're setting forth.
Do we have, did you want to make that motion, Mr. Abkarian? Or no? Okay, does anybody else want to make the motion?
Well, give us a second. I'll make the motion that we approve the specifications with understanding that the legal will take a look to ensure that the using fire prevention engineer protection engineer is legal, and that we can actually do that without any consequences.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on this issue? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Devine?
No.
Commissioner Coleman?
No.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gantis?
Yes. And just as an add, Mr. Braden, you'll report back to us on your findings on the legality of that.
I will.
And as my understanding on this motion in our conversation is, if in fact it is not within, we're not allowed to use this title, then we don't go forward with this, because then it comes back to us. Correct?
We just voted on it.
Well, if it's illegal, he can stop it. That's the point.
Good.
Then it has to
If
come
the
back.
description or the actual title is
we're not
illegal,
allowed to do it.
then you are to immediately bring it back to
Stop
us.
it.
For the
Good.
next
That's the
step.
point.
Okay.
Next, please. What is next?
Revised class specification for approval, integrated waste collection series.
Mr. Durham.
Chair, members of the commission, this is a revision, once again, to an existing class specification series for integrated waste collection. In this series, we have two levels, the integrated waste worker and the integrated waste truck operator. Really, there's a couple significant changes to this, mostly having to do with ensuring that the people we hire for this job are good drivers. And first has to do with a requirement that the candidates provide a proof of a Department of Motor Vehicles Class B instruction permit at the administration of the first exam in the process. And this is not that big of a change. Previously, we were requiring this permit except prior to their certification off the list. And it made a lot of sense to do it that way. However, we came across a number of candidates who, when we were ready to offer a job to and certify their name off the list, they hadn't followed through with obtaining that permit. So that ended up being a problem. We'd like to deal with that up front sooner in the selection process. The second thing, we were as sort of a separate item, has to do with getting the Department of Motor Vehicles driving record, which is a requirement prior to the application, and it's specifying the specific form that we're trying to solicit as applicants, and that's the H6 form from the DMV. What that does is provides us with a 5-year detailed history of any accidents, suspensions, or moving violations. Again, these changes are really primarily designed to make sure that we have good, safe drivers who are operating these trucks throughout the city. So with that, for your consideration, we have Ms. Akopian from my staff who worked on this item, along with Mario Nunez, who's the Integrated Waste Administrator.
Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Coleman.
I would move to approve the specs with just one small change. Under essential functions, down at the bottom where it says assumes personal responsibility for ensuring the duties of their position are performed in a safe, efficient manner, just delete personal. It's been.
No, we've been doing
it all along. I think this is just a slight oversight.
Second.
Sure.
I would ask, the only change I would have is, given my knowledge of the government, and particularly the court system, they love to change form numbers, and we would then have to come back and redo the class specs. So could we say the DMV Form H6 or any successor form of the DMV?
Good point.
Just given the court system, they change that stuff. We'll get 100 different forms every year.
Very good.
I made a motion.
Is that acceptable to you?
Second.
Acceptable to the second? Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gantis?
Yes. Next.
Cancellation of eligible list for integrated waste work.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, the next couple of items relate to the previous item. This has to do with really essentially our effort to go ahead and proceed with a new recruitment. But first, we do have an open eligible list for integrated waste worker. And what this we're requesting to do is cancel that list due to the fact that we pretty well exhausted what we've got on those lists. Last year, effective May 21st, 2007, we had a promotional and an open list for integrated waste worker. There were 5 names on the promotional list, for which we have gone through all of those names, and then additional 11 individuals on the open list. And of those 11, we've hired 5. We've interviewed one individual 3 times and not selected them. 3 are no longer responding. One of them is we've asked and offered, but they continue to waive, even though they've been certified. And then one is a waiver until further notice, which essentially leaves us with 2 viable candidates on this list. Given the history of our hiring in this classification, we're going to need a lot more names than that. And again, the department would like to go ahead and request a new hiring process. So with that, again, Ms. Akopian is here to answer any questions, Mr. Nunez as well.
Any questions? What is your pleasure?
Just have one quick question.
Commissioner Devine.
You indicated that you had notified the remaining candidates. Did any of them reply?
No. So what we do is, correct me if I'm wrong, we send a letter out indicating that this matter will be heard at the Civil Service Commission meeting at this date and time. If you have any objections, you're free to come and object to them. Is that correct? Okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gantis?
Yes, what is next?
Job bulletin for approval, integrated waste worker.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is Part 3 of the series of integrated waste worker activity. Following the revision of the specification and the cancellation of that list, we are now seeking to do an open job bulletin for this position. This is typically an entry-level recruitment process, which is typically done in an open fashion. However, in its previous administration last year, we did a promotional and open recruitment process. At that time, there were a number of internal candidates working in an hourly capacity through the Glendale Youth Alliance program, which is kind of a unique program run out of the Community Development Department, where they provide staffing for different city departments. And we had a number of them that had acquired some skills in this area, and we wanted to give them a shot at a salaried position. So it was done on a promotional, then open basis back then.
Do the hourly employees actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, Mr. Commissioner Karen.
Do the hourly employees qualify for promotional positions?
Yes. If an hourly employee has been here a minimum of 6 months full-time equivalent, or they have worked over 1,040 hours, they would qualify under a promotional examination. And in this situation, there were a number of people who had worked in this program. I don't know how long, if it was several years, 3 to 5 years. And again, this was
3 to 5 years on an hourly basis, more than equivalent to full time.
on my.
Yes.
Good afternoon, members, commissioners, and chairman. Yes, they have been working.
State your name.
Mario Nunez, I'm the Integrated Waste Administrator, Public Works Department. And to answer your question, yes, these few people have been working under the Glendale Youth Alliance program assigned to us, and our job has been basically to train them. These people have acquired good training, basically to the level where they have reached a skill set that makes them qualified for a position of this
They're
level.
working full time?
They were working full-time on an hourly basis. That's correct.
Now, how many hours?
People got some problems.
Yeah.
And that is, in the past, I came here, if you remember, more than a year ago, so we do not have any hourly positions except for one retiree who is working less than 900 hours a year, but we do not have any hourly positions. We eliminated those positions as you requested.
What he's talking about, I think, was earlier, when we did the promotional open earlier, it was because we did have hourly to move into full-time, but we don't have them now, is that correct?
We don't have, let me ask you a question. We don't have any hourly positions right now that are working on a full-time basis?
No. What we wanted to do is to, at that point in time, was to give an opportunity to some of them to perhaps become full-time. Some of them made it, some others didn't.
Okay. And I know, Mr. Coleman, that personal is out of the job bulletin.
Correct.
And that they have the DMV record. What's your pleasure?
Move to approval.
Second.
Okay.
With the H6 and the 6.
Well, this can be an H6. This
because
is
they can
H6.
change it. Okay.
As long as we put it in the class spec, then they could change it if it needs to be changed. Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gantis?
Yes, what is next?
Agenda forecast.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, the report indicates the next couple of meetings, the activity. In the next 2 meetings, we have are defined as short meetings because there are hearings immediately following. That was supposed to
Today was supposed to be a short
tonight, but,
meeting.
you know.
Good job on the short meeting.
Longer than any of the
tonight.
other meetings.
You can't control who shows up here and comes before us. So, but we have, again, a short report next meeting on perhaps a consideration of change in how minutes are prepared. The following meeting, your quarterly advertising budget expenditures report, and then following that, a couple of items having to do with the selection of outside hearing officers and process for meeting cancellations. So with that, if you have any questions or anything you want to add.
Any questions? None appearing. What is next?
Reports and information.
Are there any reports or information? None. What is next?
Civil Service Commission and our staff comments.
Anybody have any comments? None. What is next?
Closed session.
Okay, the moment in time that we will be going into closed session. We have two items. I anticipate, Mr. Braden, that on one item we will be reporting out. Is that correct?
I would anticipate we'd be reporting out on the public employee appointment, senior customer service representative.
That's the one I'm referring to. Thank you. We are going into closed session, and we will take the public employee appointment senior customer service representative. Everybody else is asked to leave, please.